Hey there, everybody. Good afternoon. This is Dr. Gwen from the Dr. Gwen International Training and Empowerment Academy and host of the iTunes show, The Dr. Gwen Show. Now, my voice is sounding a lot better today than it has been the last few days. And I know yesterday we chatted and seems like I was a little bit struggling to get the words out. Still sounded like a frog, but today, thank goodness, it is so much better, so much better. And thanks for my love bubbles. You know I love that. So thank you for joining me as well. Now, yesterday we talked about your intuition, that deepest part of you. Hey there, Jackie. Mwah. Good to see you. So we talked about yesterday about your intuition, and I shared with you some of my experiences that I had. Probably, it's really more than 10 years ago, 12 maybe, with not trusting my intuition. Now, today, what I want to do is to talk with you about you. That is, what are you doing right now in your life? Are you living your life, or is it somebody else's life that you are living? Now, I want you to really stay with me on this one and put on your thinking cap and really cue in to your heart. Be true to you, because the only person that you're going to deceive is yourself, not me, because I have no personal wins or gains for you when you choose what is right for you in your life. So as I go through, I have some questions I'm going to ask you, and I want you to really be true, okay? Be true to you. Now, are you living somebody else's life? What do I mean by that? Let's just start off by saying, our educational system has been designed, I think, to help students to reason and to develop their intellect, and that's not all bad. Having been a part of the system for decades and triple decades, I understand the internal workings of how that goes. Kid comes to school. In elementary school, everybody does the general subjects. They move on to middle school, and then there's some separating that begins to happen. Some kids are identified as gifted. Some are identified with disabilities, and they are placed in those classrooms to support whatever the disabilities are. Now, some kids are mainstreamed, right? So they're put in the regular classroom. You have teachers or aides coming in to provide support for the kids. But in general, there's a track. Some kids go off to do the algebra in the 7th grade and the geometry in the 8th grade, and then they move on a higher track in high school. Now, what I have observed over the decades among the school districts is that some guidance counselors say to the kids, some kids, well, you are gifted. I remember this situation when I was actually in my office at one point in time. And I heard a child say, I wanted to do this particular subject. And I believe it was a technology course or something like that. And I overheard the guidance counselor saying to the kid, well, no, you are going to be on the college track. So she was discouraging the child from taking that course that the child expressed a desire to want to do. And I thought about that for a moment. Because, see, that is the way the system is sort of set up. Kids can go off and do technology, but oftentimes those technology courses clash with their gifted courses. And so it's set up on a way that doesn't allow them the flexibility to go off and do those courses for a lot of times, unless there are different sections. And those of you who've been school administrators, you will understand what I'm saying. But the gist of this is simply that the child was discouraged from pursuing what he clearly expressed that he wanted to do. So from that point, we find ourselves directing kids, directing them to where we think they need to go. And then parents, and I have to admit, I've been guilty at one point, but thank goodness I did back off, okay? And then parents take on this approach that they want their kids to be doctors and lawyers and engineers and whatever the thing is that they want their kids to be. And if a child expresses a concern that they want to do music, for example, they will tell them to do something stable. Now, there may not be anything wrong with that off the surface, that advice. However, inherently, what is inside of that advice is that you can't be successful doing music. Because look how many people are in the music industry and they're starving musicians. I'm sure you've heard that terminology already. And so once again, as parents, what people tend to do is they funnel their kids in a direction completely different from where the child's natural bent is. And so we grow up to be adults. We go off to college, right? And now it's time for us to pick what we want to do. And then among the limited stuff that's available, we have limited numbers of career paths that we can take when we're studying in college. There are only so many majors that you can do, right? So once again, you're funneled down in that path, and heaven forbid that you want to do something that's different than what's on those curriculum. And once again, the curriculum dictates what we want to do. Then guess what? We grow up and it comes time to pick a career. And many of us allow the dollar, the bottom line, to focus the direction. Now, there is nothing wrong with wanting to be paid well. I'm going to say that very clearly, okay? Because there are some people who feel as though that if you want to receive adequate pay for your work, then you are evil. Or they use this quote that says, money is the root of all evil. There's no such thing written like that. It says the love of money is the root of all evil. And, well, what does the love of money mean? My personal take on that is you allow money to supersede every other need that exists. You will do just about anything to get that money. That is my take on that. But there's nothing wrong with wanting to have money. Because when you really think about it, if you are someone who wants to give back in your community, what are you going to do if you don't have any money to do it? Money is energy. You need money to provide the resources for people. Now, that may not entirely be true because you can also work with other individuals to have them provide services out of the goodness of their heart without the pay. But generally speaking, money as an energy, thanks for your likes, I appreciate it. And money as an energy is something that you exchange for service. And I see Jackie says, a system with no room for their dreams. Yes, that's what's happening in that school system, the way it's going. And it's no wonder that some kids drop out of college. I'm not proposing that, okay? Because there's some value to education. And I think we have placed the wrong emphasis on where that value needs to be. If we are going to promote education at the expense of stifling other people's intuition, I am not for it one bit. I'm not. I'm going to say that. Having been one who's risen through the system, the educational system, right? I can't say that I hate having my doctorate degree, but I can tell you one thing, that it doesn't make me who I am. Now that I understand this whole process of life and living, and this whole process of being, a degree doesn't make you be who you want to be or who you're here to be. So, Jackie says, parents and other authority figures have done it to me too. Yes. Yeah, I mean, you know, once you say that, when my son was graduating from high school, I thought, I should try to influence him to go be an engineer. He's got that kind of brain, right? And I tried, but he knew what he wanted. And I had the sense enough to back away. But you know that intuition that we've all been given? It's a powerful thing. What really is intuition? If you should consider what intuition is, it's almost like that knowing, right? It's that knowing that you're not reasoning through it, but you just know that it's right. What's that all about? You know, I wasn't always cued into this. When my son was younger, he would always come up with some things that he was creating and saying. And they were, for the most part, true. And I remembered asking him this. I said, son, who taught you that? Listen to that question. Who taught you that? Right? And he said, nobody taught me that. I just know it. And my response was, come on, that can't be true. Someone must have taught you that. Imagine that. You see, I wasn't even aware of this higher communicative self, that internal knowing, that gut, that hunch. I wasn't even aware of it, even though I myself had gotten several hunches over the decades, right? Yeah, that's surprising. I've gotten several hunches over the decades of my life, but I didn't attribute it to that. I was just completely oblivious to what was going on until I finally tuned in. I'll tell you one story too. When he was 18 months old, I bought this machine. It was a Bissell carpet cleaner. So here comes this long, it's the big one. And it had two little flips on the flaps on the end. I didn't notice it. So I took the thing out of the box, and here I am fiddling with this, trying to open the thing. And I'm going around and around. I thought I pulled that thing. Nothing happened. And at that time, my son was 18 months old. I have never forgotten that. 18 months old. And he was always into stuff, just trying to do stuff with different boyish stuff. And he ran up to the machine, and I thought, well, he's going to be messing with this. And what he did, he grabbed that little flip and grabbed the other flip, and the thing popped open. Oh my goodness, I was in shock. How did this 18-month-old boy know how to open that? And then he just looked up at me with his tiny little face, as if, there you go, Mom. You know, how did this 18-month-old kid... Yeah, it's funny, but you know, I was in shock. I didn't think it was funny then. It was like, oh my goodness, how did he know that? And today, he really is still creating stuff. He's creating stuff. He is so incredibly good, but so are you. So are you if you cue into that. Absolutely. You know? So, the question I want to ask you is, whose life are you living? Are you living your school's life, that is your teacher or where the guidance counselor put you to do? Are you living your parents' life? Are you living the life to create just money What life are you, whose life are you living? Is it yours? Are you cued in to your deepest intuition? That knowing, that hunch. You know, I really believe this thing. I believe that if we were all in tune to that hunch, some people wouldn't be suffering, because those hunches are our destiny to success. So, whose life are you living? What job are you doing right now? What are you doing at this moment? As a career, as a path, how did you choose it? Did you get up in your head and decide that, okay, I'm going to do this because it's more strategic or it's more status? Can I make a confession? I'm going to make a confession. After all, this is all about transparency. And so I have a confession. Decades ago, when I was going to, after I had completed my master's degree, I love to sew, right? Oh man, I used to make every piece of garment my kids wore and myself wore. From the bow tie for my son, to his shirt, to his lined suits. I mean, I used to make it all, and I had a lot of pleasure making those gorgeous dresses for my daughters and having them look really exotic. And it didn't look homemade, because people always used to ask me, where'd you buy their dresses, you know? And just as a diversion, when they were really little and we lived in New York City, there was a Macy's store that was down the road, and so I used to walk down there on a regular basis to find clothes for my daughter. And this time I just had one child, and I remembered walking in there and seeing this gorgeous dress, gorgeous pink dress, all fluffy and lacy, you know, just the way I think girls like it. And I bought the dress. At this time, this was more than 32 years ago, believe it or not. And the dress was, at that time, about $65. That's a baby dress. That's a lot of money back then. But I thought, this dress is so cute, I'm going to get it. So I bought, no, it was on sale for 30-something. And so I bought the dress and put her in it, and we went off to church. Before that baby came home, that dress had ripped out at the waistline. And she didn't do anything. It's just like it started separating from the stitches, and it started fraying. So there was nothing that you could master. Now see, Jackie, I saw seamstress mastery, and so that word just entered my vocabulary. Powerful subconscious mind. So I was so distraught, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to learn to sew. I'm going to learn to sew. So there was this lady in town, and I went and just kind of hung out with her and learned how to sew. She used to make the most gorgeous clothes, fully lined suits. And I thought, my gosh, if I could do that. And so I learned to do that by trial and error. When I look back at my very first suit that I wore, I thought, oh my goodness, Gwen, you actually put that on and went out in public. Oh my goodness, you know, it looks, I mean, I was proud of that thing, and clearly it was not the best made suit, but I had made it, and I felt really good about it, so I wore that thing with pride. But looking back over the years when I found that suit, I go, oh my goodness, I cannot believe I went out in public in that suit. Yeah, that was really funny. So when I was finished with my master's degree, I thought, what am I going to do? I want to go do a doctorate degree. Or should I go off to design school and learn to sew, you know, just to design clothes and to make that, because I clearly loved doing that. Now, what I discovered for a little bit was that I didn't like sewing for anybody else but my kids. Because I tried helping out the neighbor across the street. She had come over and brought me some fabric, And I was to help her because I'd made all the draperies, and she had come over and asked me where I got them. And I said, I made my draperies. So she came over and she brought the fabric and all of that, and I hated it. I didn't like, my joy was just sewing for my children. So I figured maybe I could go, maybe that was what swayed me, the darn thing. Perhaps that's exactly what swayed me in, let's see if this will pop right back up, because I am not about to finish this. I'm kind of waiting for my friend Jackie to tell me if she can see me. I can see myself as a shadow on the screen, but you can't see me. Okay, Veronica, hey, good for you to join me. Can you guys see me? You're saying yes, you can see me. Okay, I'm just going to keep talking. Okay, awesome. Awesome. Because I know if I press another button, I'm going to disappear again, and I'm not doing that. So I'm really a shadow on the screen. I can't barely see myself. Right, so what I decided I was going to do was I was going to go off and do my doctorate degree. And I didn't even have a clue what that measurement and research was when I went and did it, but it sounded practical enough for me. I'm very practical. I knew I didn't want to do a doctorate in leadership because that was all theory stuff. I'm not really theory driven. And part of the thing that drove me was the prestige. Imagine that. It's a good thing that I ended up liking the subject. But what are you doing right now? And why are you doing it? Is it the prestige? Is it the money? Or are you truly connected with your intuition? That little voice in there that is so sure. It's what I call your higher self. It's what I call your guide, your internal compass. Is that who or where you are connected? Do you know, for those of you who are Christians, and I know sometimes we tend to put off some of these thoughts and ideas, there is a scripture I came across in 1 John 2. I believe it's 21 and 27. I'm not exactly sure. But if you read through that whole chapter, you will see it. And this is what it says. It says, you know, in essence, you do not need anyone to teach you. You already have the truth inside of you. Imagine that. The first time I read that, I was in shock. I go, whoa, are you kidding me? Does it really say that? And you know what I did? I went and go ask someone. See how we do? We always want validation from other people. That's a dangerous thing. You have to be the only one to connect with your inner source to figure out what it is for you. Just like when I invite people to do the passion test, right? I invite them to connect with that deep in their higher self, that gut. Okay? And you can't go off to go ask someone what your passions are. You can't, because only you can know that. If you do that, you won't be happy. So, I know I've been cut off before, and it's 3:27 now, and I don't want to drag this out too much, but what I really want to impress upon you is this. Live your own life. It doesn't mean you won't look for counsel and advice for someone, but when you do, you've got to check it in with your own gut. You must do that. The divine did not give us that intuition and that deep gut for us to keep ignoring. When you keep ignoring it, you're going to be wandering around like those children of Israel that's described in the Bible for years and years and years. And I remember Jackie said something here earlier yesterday on one of the videos. You're gonna keep going back over the same path until you've learned to listen. So you really have to listen. It's dangerous to ask others. Yes, I completely agree with that. And thank you for that like. So really, what I want to leave you with is a couple of questions. What career have you chosen? Why have you chosen it, right? Why do you believe the things you believe right now? Is it your own personal deep conviction, or are you believing it because your mom believed it, her mom believed it, her mom believed it, and generations believed it? It's time to stop and examine, why do you believe what you do? And what are you impressed to do right now in your life that maybe you've been running from? Is there something that you should be doing? Your intuition is saying, hey, wake up, wake up. This is what you need to be doing, and you keep running away. That is the source of your happiness. It's scary. It really scares you because it's big. Usually when your higher self, when your intuition, when the divine impresses upon you what you need to do, it's typically not a small task. It's typically not something that you feel you can do. Look at Jonah. He ran away, right? Don't keep running away. The big fish may swallow you. So stop and pause and pay attention. And yes, it will scare you. I know it will. And despite the fact that it scares you, turn around and go in the direction. I was listening to I think he was a pastor or some guy who said that he has been with several people as they transition, right? That as they passed. And there are usually two conditions that he notices. One, the person who is greatly happy and feel like they have poured everything into life that they needed to pour into, and they follow their intuition. And the second one, who deeply regrets that they did not have the braveness and the courage enough to step out and do the things that they were impressed to do. Be sure you're not doing that. I love those love bubbles. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for joining me. And more than anything else today, please, please promise yourself that you are going to live your life. It may be scary, yes. It may be a path that not everybody is following, yes. However, your own hunch and your own intuition is what you need to follow, because you are unique. You're not a pack of herd. You don't need to be marching to somebody else's drum. Follow your own unique intuition, because that is your gift that you have to bring to the world. Nobody else is bringing that same gift. So stop living other people's lives. Start living your own lives and start making a difference in this world. I love you guys so much, and I'm so delighted that you were able to join me again. And thank you so much for your patience with me. Have a great afternoon.